The alien girl Xera stood tall and proud, her silver eyes glowing under the ship's emergency red lights. Her long purple coat swayed behind her as she walked past the rows of cages, each one holding dangerous creatures from across the galaxy. But only one cage made the crew tremble. Inside it sat Grorlak. The beast was huge, nearly the size of a small car. Its muscles rippled under thick black fur. Its fangs were longer than Xera's fingers. Its eyes burned like twin suns. This was no pet. It was a weapon, a living nightmare. And it only listened to Xera. At least that's what everyone believed. When the alien starship made an emergency landing on Earth, the crew warned the human mechanics not to go near Grorlak. "He tears metal like paper," Xera told them. "Stay back, or you will not survive." Most humans nodded and kept their distance. But not Ethan. Ethan was a young Earthman. He had grease on his hands, wore a simple jacket, and whistled while he worked. He didn't believe in alien warnings. To him, everything was just a job, and this beast just looked dirty. So one afternoon, while the alien crew worked on repairs, Ethan grabbed a bucket of warm water, some alien-safe soap, and a soft brush. He walked calmly toward the cage. Xera turned the corner just in time to see him unlocking the gate. "Stop!" she screamed, running forward. "You will die, fool." But it was too late. Grorlak was already out. Xera's heart dropped. This was how humans died, torn apart in seconds. But instead of attacking, Grorlak sat down. The massive beast sniffed the soap in the bucket and licked Ethan's hand. Then, as if it were some playful puppy, Grorlak let Ethan pour water over its back. Suds foamed on its thick fur. Ethan began to scrub its sides. The beast leaned into his hand and let out a strange sound, something between a growl and a purr. The entire crew stood frozen. Even Xera couldn't speak. She watched, stunned, as her wildest monster, one trained with fire and pain, willingly rolled over for a belly wash. Ethan chuckled. "You like that, huh?" "Good boy." Xera marched over, furious. "What did you do to him?" Ethan looked up, still scrubbing. "Just giving him a bath. Poor guy was filthy." "No, you used some kind of drug, some mind trick." "I just used soap," he said, smiling. Xera looked at Grorlak. The beast wasn't sedated. His eyes were clear. He was calm, alert, and happy? No alien had ever bathed Grorlak. No one had even touched him without armor, not even Xera. And yet, here was a soft-skinned human, treating the beast like a family dog. Xera's pride burned. Her face flushed. Violet. She snapped her fingers and gave the command. "Grorlak, back in the cage, now!" The beast didn't move. "Grorlak," she repeated, louder. The beast looked at her, then looked at Ethan, and then it licked Ethan's cheek. Xera gasped in disbelief. Something was wrong, very wrong. Back on her homeworld, beasts like Grorlak were sacred. They didn't obey just anyone. They chose their alpha, their protector, their mate's partner. It was a bond, rare, powerful, and unbreakable. Xera stared at Ethan, her voice suddenly soft. "What are you?" Ethan stood up, still holding the soapy brush. "I'm just a mechanic." But Grorlak had already made a choice. The beast walked beside Ethan, calmly following him like a trained animal. The alien crew backed away as the pair passed. For the first time in her life, Xera felt powerless. This wasn't just a bath. This was a shift in power, and Xera, furious, confused, and strangely curious, wasn't ready to let it go. Not yet. Xera sat alone in her command chair, her fingers gripping the armrests. Her mind replayed the strange scene again and again. Grorlak covered in bubbles, obeying a human like a loyal pup. This wasn't normal. It wasn't just about pride anymore. On her homeworld, beasts like Grorlak only bonded with soul-matched protectors. For the beast to ignore her commands, it meant one thing. It had chosen Ethan. But that couldn't be true. He was just a human, just a dirty mechanic from a weak planet. No military training, no royal blood, no connection to the ancient beast lines. And yet, Grorlak now slept at Ethan's feet. The next morning, Zara tried to take control again. She marched down the corridor, her boots echoing across the ship's deck. When she reached Grorlak's new resting spot, right beside Ethan's toolbox, she gave a sharp whistle. Grorlak. Stand. The beast opened one eye and yawned. She clenched her jaw. I said stand. Grorlak stretched, and turned its back on her. Ethan chuckled. He already had breakfast and his morning scratch. He's probably just tired. Tired? Zara snapped. He is not supposed to rest beside you. He's not hurting anyone, Ethan said, wiping grease from his hands. Besides, he seems happier now, Zara growled under her breath. Beasts do not feel happiness, they feel purpose. And he's forgetting his. But even she knew that wasn't true. Grorlak wasn't forgetting anything. He was choosing. Later, that day the crew gathered for a scheduled test. Zara wanted to prove Grorlak still followed her. She gave the challenge. A series of commands, meant to test loyalty and speed. Zara gave the first signal. Attack form, stance 3. Grorlak didn't move. Target strike. Center mass. Nothing. But when Ethan laughed and said jokingly, Roll over, big guy, the beast dropped to the floor and rolled, legs in the air. The alien crew stared in stunned silence. That's when it happened. Zara froze, not from anger but from something else. A strange heat rushed through her. Her skin tingled, her pupils thinned like a predator sensing something dangerous and desirable. Grorlak was bonded to Ethan, and by her people's law. If the beast had chosen a protector, then the beast's original keeper, Zara, was fated to either challenge or court that protector. Ethan had no idea. Zara walked away, breath heavy. That night, Zara asked the ship's AI to replay every recording of Ethan since he arrived. She watched him lift heavy machinery, talk softly to Grorlak, and even fix a reactor leak with just a wrench and some string. He was simple, but not stupid. He was kind, but not weak. Zara found herself watching him too long. Was this madness or instinct? Back in her culture, the taming of a royal beast by an outsider was a sacred sign. A bond like that hadn't been seen in over 200 years. Zara whispered to herself, The beast has chosen. She looked at her reflection in the metal wall. Her eyes glowed slightly, and her breath caught. She wasn't angry anymore. She was nervous, curious, afraid. What if the beast saw something she couldn't? What if the human was more than he seemed? The next morning, the crew found Zara standing beside Ethan in the engine bay. I want to observe you, she said. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Why? To understand why you didn't die. Ethan laughed. Nice, that's comforting. I mean it. You've changed something. In him, in us. Ethan looked down at Grorlak, who was chewing on a thick metal bolt like it was candy. I didn't do anything special, Ethan said. I just treated him like a friend. Zara tilted her head. You think beasts can be friends? Why not? He smiled. Everyone needs kindness, even monsters. Zara didn't respond, but her expression softened. Maybe the beast wasn't the only one changing, maybe. She was too. Zara stood in the training hall, arms crossed, her eyes sharp like twin blades. The entire crew had gathered around. This wasn't just another test, this was a challenge, not between beasts, but between her and the human. She had announced it publicly, and now there was no turning back. I challenge you, she said to Ethan, to a trial of control. Ethan blinked, confused. A what now? If you claim my beast, then prove it, Zara said with a cold smile. You and I will each command Grorlak. Whoever he obeys wins. Ethan laughed nervously. This is about a dog bath, isn't it? Zara didn't smile back. No, she said. This is about honor, the crew whispered among themselves. On Jera's planet, a trial of control wasn't just for fun. It was an ancient tradition, used to settle disputes between nobles, warriors, even suitors. Whoever lost the trial had to step down, or submit. Jera told herself this was about respect, but deep down, it felt like something more. Grorlak stood in the center of the arena, calm and still like a shadow carved in stone. His red eyes moved slowly between his two masters. Jera went first. She gave her signal in the old tongue, sharp and commanding. Grorlak, rise, form battle stance, show your teeth. The beast blinked and stood. Not as quickly as before, not as strong. But he obeyed. Jera smirked. Still loyal, she whispered. Then it was Ethan's turn. He didn't shout. He didn't use fancy words. He just crouched down and said gently, "Come here, buddy." Grorlak paused. Then, with heavy steps, he walked to Ethan and nuzzled his chest. The crowd gasped. Jera's smile faded. Now came the second task, protection. Each of them would face a harmless threat created by the crew's holograms. Whoever Grorlak defended would be declared the beast's chosen. Jera stood tall. She activated the hologram near her, a fake enemy soldier with a blaster. Grorlak didn't move. Then Ethan's hologram appeared, glowing, buzzing, rushing toward him. Grorlak roared and leapt like lightning. The fake enemy vanished under the weight of his claws. Jera watched, speechless. Her beast hadn't just obeyed. He protected the human. The crew was silent. Ethan stood awkwardly. "I didn't mean to embarrass anyone," he said. "Maybe he just, like soap." Jera felt her breath quicken. Her skin glowed faintly again. But this time it wasn't rage. It was something older, deeper. The beast had chosen, and by tradition, so must she. Later that night, Jera walked the dark corridors of the ship alone. Grorlak's quiet steps echoed beside her, but the beast no longer followed her command. It was only keeping her company. She looked up at the stars through the observation window. "Why him?" she whispered. The beast said nothing. Jera closed her eyes. For years she had been strong, cold, respected, but never once chosen. Now, the beast had picked a human, simple, kind, soft-spoken. He didn't fight for dominance. He fought with care. And maybe, Jera thought, that's what true power is. Jera sat inside her private chamber, her glowing fingers tracing patterns on the metal wall. Outside, stars moved slowly across the sky window. But inside her heart, something wild was rising. She had lost the trial of control. She should have been angry, humiliated. Instead, she was restless. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, the human. Ethan, laughing, smiling, casually wiping grease from his brow like he didn't just win her beast and break a royal tradition. Worse, she could still smell him, earth-scented, warm, alive. Jera shook her head hard. No, this is madness. She stood up and looked into the mirror. Her skin had changed again. Faint glowing marks traced her cheekbones. Her eyes had thinned into slits. Her voice, when she spoke, vibrated with something ancient. She knew what this meant. Her bonding instinct had awakened. On her homeworld, it was rare, but real. When a beast chose a protector, the original keeper would sometimes feel a second bond, forming a mate pull. The instincts weren't controlled by logic or pride, they were biological. Deep. Almost sacred. Jera stared at her reflection in disbelief. I'm not falling for a human, she told herself, but the glow on her skin said otherwise. Later, Jera found herself walking the corridors at night. She didn't know where she was going. Her body moved without thought. Then she turned a corner and stopped. There he was, Ethan, sleeping in a tool hammock, one leg dangling, arms behind his head. Grorlak curled protectively at his feet. Jera stood there, hidden in the shadows. She watched him breathe. She watched the tiny smile on his lips. Something deep inside her stirred. She remembered what the elders once taught her. The beast always knows what the heart tries to deny. She turned away quickly, but her pulse was racing. The next day, she tried to act normal. She wore her uniform, gave commands, trained with weapons, spoke in a firm voice. But her crew could sense it. She was distracted. "Captain," one officer whispered to another, "she hasn't looked this unsettled since the Battle of 9 Suns." "I think it's the human," another replied. "She's glowing again," said a third. Jera heard them all. She said nothing, because they were right. At lunch, she walked into the dining bay and saw Ethan laughing with other crew members. Gorlak sat proudly at his side like a trophy. Jera sat across from him. "You've disrupted everything," she said softly. Ethan blinked. "I just gave your monster a bath." Jera stared into his eyes. "And now you own him." "That's not a small thing." "I don't own anyone," Ethan said. "He chose, I just accepted." Jera's chest tightened. That word, chose. It echoed in her mind like a whisper. The beast had chosen. And now her instincts were calling. Later that evening, Jera stepped into her chamber again. She sat down and pulled up her cultural archives. She searched ancient scrolls about bonded beasts and soul matches. One entry caught her eye. When the beast bows its head to another, the keeper must either accept the bond or suffer the slow burn of longing until death. Jera leaned back. Was this why her skin burned at night? Why her breath caught when she looked at Ethan? Why her thoughts returned to him again and again? She didn't want this. She wasn't supposed to feel this. She was a warrior, a captain, a royal heir. But her body didn't care. Her instincts had already chosen. That night she dreamed of fire, and Ethan standing in it, smiling, and when she woke, her first word was his name. Ethan. A red alarm echoed across the alien ship. The lights dimmed. The floor vibrated. Warning symbols flashed on every wall. They were under attack. Jera rushed to the command deck, her uniform half-zipped, her mind racing. Behind her, Gorlak bounded, in silence, his massive paws shaking the floor. At the control screen, her officers shouted data. "Unknown vessel, approaching fast. They've disabled our shields." Jera narrowed her eyes. "Show me." The view screen blinked on. A dark, sharp warship hovered above, painted in the tribal colors of the Dranthek Raiders, savage space scavengers. These weren't diplomats or pirates. They were hunters, and they had found prey. Jera clenched her jaw. "Raise defense weapons. Call all units to stations." But one officer hesitated. "Captain, we can't control Gorlak anymore." Jera paused. It was true. Gorlak now only obeyed Ethan, and right now Ethan was in the lower deck, working on engine repairs like nothing was wrong. In the armory, Jera stormed in. Ethan looked up, wiping his hands. "Jera, you okay?" She didn't answer at first. Instead, she stood in silence. Her eyes searched his face. Her voice, when it came, was low and steady. "We're under attack. The enemy is fast, brutal. If they board us, my people won't survive." Ethan stood up, listening. "And?" he asked. She stepped closer. "I need the beast, but I cannot command him." He tilted his head. "You want me to fight?" Jera's breath hitched. "No. I want you to lead." A strange silence fell between them. This wasn't just a request, this was surrender. From the woman who once saw humans as weak, soft creatures, now asking one human man to protect her people. "I'm just a mechanic," Ethan said softly. Jera's voice broke slightly. "Not anymore." The crew gathered in the war bay, weapons ready. Jera stood beside Ethan, silent but tense. Her people looked confused. Why was he standing at the center? "Because the beast obeys him," one whispered. "Because the captain trusts him," another replied. Jera raised her hand. "This is not weakness," she said to her crew. This is survival. Gorlak fights for him now, and so will we. The hatch above opened. The enemy ship began its boarding sequence. Ethan looked down at the growling beast beside him. You ready, buddy? Gorlak snarled in reply, eyes burning red. The humans and aliens watched in awe as the two walked forward, man and monster. The first enemy raiders dropped into the corridor, blasters drawn, screaming. Ethan didn't blink. He shouted, Gorlak, charge! The beast roared with thunder, lunging forward. Metal crushed, screams echoed, blood splashed against walls. But Gorlak never touched a single crew member. He was a perfect weapon, guided by a human. From the deck, Jera watched it all through the monitors. Something changed in her chest, not fear, not even awe. It was devotion. The enemy retreated after only minutes. Their leader had lost an arm. Their ships backed away. They had come expecting prey. They found something else, something far more dangerous. Later, Jera found Ethan sitting alone in the engine room, resting beside Gorlak. He looked tired, dirty, alive. You saved my crew, she said quietly. He looked up. Didn't do it for them, did it for you? She froze. What? I knew if you lost your ship and you'd never look at me again. Jera's voice softened. I was already looking. He smiled, and for the first time she smiled too. Not as a captain, not as a warrior, but as a woman whose heart had finally stopped fighting. The next day, the ship was quiet. Too quiet. Jera walked through the halls, her boots echoing softly. Alien crew members paused to salute her, but something had changed. Their eyes no longer held doubt. Now, they looked at her with wonder, and behind her, wherever she went, they looked with respect at Ethan, a human, a mechanic. Now known as the Beast Commander, news had spread fast how Gorlak, the untamable monster, had become a living weapon under Ethan's voice. How Ethan had ridden him like a war beast into a corridor of fire and made the raiders retreat. Alien crew whispered his name like a hero from the old songs. Jera found him in the hangar, standing beside Gorlak, running his hands along the creature's thick neck. Everyone keeps staring, Ethan said without looking. They should, Jera replied softly. I'm not used to that. You'll have to get used to more, she said. Your name has entered the fleet logs. He chuckled. Great. Now I'm an alien legend. Jera walked closer, her tone changing. You know, we have never seen anything like this before. You, Gorlak, the way he listens. It's not just bond. It's destiny. Ethan turned. Is that why you keep looking at me like that? Jera didn't deny it this time. Yes. Just then the ship's alert rang again, but it wasn't a warning, it was a call to defend another vessel nearby. A civilian freighter was under attack by the same raiders. Captain, said the officer on the comm, they're requesting help. They said they'll surrender unless a miracle comes. Jera didn't blink. She turned to Ethan. They don't need a miracle, she said. They need you. An hour later, Ethan stood in battle armor. It wasn't alien tech. It was simple Earth gear, adjusted with some protective shields. At his side was Gorlak, his saddle newly mounted. Yes, a saddle. For the first time in galactic history, an alien war beast would be ridden into battle by a human. The crew stared in silent awe. Jera walked up to him. You don't have to do this, she said. I know, he replied. But I want to. He paused. And besides, you'll be watching, right? Jera smirked. Always. The boarding ramp opened. Ethan mounted the beast like a knight of ancient Earth. Gorlak roared into the void, launching forward with a leap that shook the deck. They dropped onto the attacked freighter like a meteor. The raiders never stood a chance. Ethan didn't just fight. He commanded. Gorlak slammed enemies into walls. Ethan gave orders to panicking civilians. He found wounded aliens and dragged them to safety. He did it all without fear, without doubt, without even realizing. Jera was watching everything through the screen. She stood there, her heart thudding, her hands trembling. Her skin glowed again. But this time, it was calm, natural, acceptance. He was no longer just human. He was hers. When Ethan returned, covered in soot and small burns, the crew rushed to greet him. They lifted him on their shoulders, chanting his name in alien tongues. Jera stepped through the crowd, her eyes locked on his. No words were spoken, but in that moment everything was clear. He had washed her beast, he had protected her crew, he had ridden into fire, not as a soldier but as a man in love, and she had fallen, completely, into that fire. The ship floated peacefully in orbit now. No alarms, no screams, no fire in the halls. For the first time in days. It was quiet. But inside Jera's heart, a storm raged. She stood before the mirror again, her eyes catching the soft blue glow of her bonding marks. Her skin shimmered. Her heart beat faster every time she thought of him. Ethan, the human who washed her beast in soap, the human who commanded Gorlak without fear, the human who rode into battle, not for glory, but for her. Outside, Ethan sat on the upper deck beside Gorlak watching the stars. His armor was gone. His hands were bandaged. His face carried small cuts. Still, he smiled. "I think we made it, big guy," he whispered. Gorlak gave a quiet growl, more like a sigh. Ethan leaned back, watching the stars shift slowly, but he didn't know that someone was watching him. Jera stood in the doorway. She had said nothing for hours. She had waited until she was sure that what she felt wasn't confusion, but truth. She stepped forward, quiet as shadow. Ethan turned and his smile widened. "Hey." Jera didn't speak at first. She sat beside him, close enough to feel his warmth. "I used to believe humans were weak," she whispered. He chuckled. "You made that very clear the first day we met." "I was wrong," she said. He looked at her now, really looked. Jera was still in her captain's cloak, but her posture was softer, her voice deeper. "I was taught beasts are to be controlled, that love is earned through strength, domination, victory." She paused. "But you showed me something else. You showed me that love can come from soap." Ethan blinked. "Well, when you put it that way, I sound like a space janitor." Jera finally laughed, a true, light laugh. Then her face turned serious. "On my world, when a beast chooses a protector, it means the heart of its keeper is no longer their own." She looked into his eyes. "My beast chose you, Ethan." She reached out, touched his chest gently. "And I think my heart did too." Ethan didn't move for a long moment. He had seen war. He had fixed engines and collapsing ships. He had been inches from death. But nothing terrified him more than this moment. "Jera," he whispered, "are you saying?" "Yes. I'm just a human. I know. I don't have glowing skin. I don't command fleets. I just..." She leaned in and stopped him with her hand. "But you command something far more dangerous," she said. "Me." Jera stood and offered her hand. "I have a ritual chamber," she said softly. "It's old, sacred, never used." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That's not the best sales pitch." Jera smiled. "If we go in together, it means something. It means I claim you, not as captain to soldier, but as mate to mate." Ethan's smile faded into something deeper, more serious. "Are you sure?" he asked. Jera gave a small nod. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Inside the ritual chamber, everything was quiet. The walls were covered in symbols from her planet. In the center, a circle, glowed faintly. They stepped inside it, together. Jera placed her palm on his chest. He placed his hand on hers. The chamber recognized the bond. A soft hum filled the room. Light danced along their skin. Gorlak watched from outside, eyes glowing, completely still, like a guardian witnessing history. Jera leaned forward, forehead touching his. "You didn't just tame my beast," she whispered. "You tamed my fear." Ethan closed his eyes. "And you made me feel like more than a man." "Then stay," she whispered. "Stay with me. Be my warrior, my mechanic, my mate." Ethan didn't speak. He kissed her instead. They stayed locked in the glow for a long time. When the light faded, their marks matched. 2 glowing lines over the heart, signs of chosen bond. It was done. Alien and human, beast and warrior, 2 worlds now tied by something no law could stop. Love. Later, the crew stood at attention as Jera entered the command deck. But this time, Ethan walked beside her, not as a guest, not as a helper, but as her equal, her bonded partner. No one dared speak, but every eye watched with quiet honor. Jera looked at her people. "I have chosen," she said clearly. Gorlak growled in approval from the corner. "And the stars may shake," she said, "but this bond will hold." As the ship returned to deep space, stories spread quickly across systems, about a beast tamed not by power but by soap, about a warrior who fell for a man with no title, about a human who rose from grease-stained overalls to stand beside a queen. And at the center of every story was a simple truth. Sometimes the heart knows what the stars cannot.